Welcome to the Get Real podcast. I'm Austin, your host. Today, I wanted to start with talking about the Jimmy Butler situation. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was getting kind of worked up because I saw that the Houston Rockets were in aggressive. This is kind of old news, but after watching the first game opener, Wolves versus Spurs, I kind of want to touch base on this. Anyway, I saw that the Rockets were close to getting a deal done with the Minnesota Timberwolves about trading Jimmy Butler, but the holdup was they did not want to trade Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker. So I was telling my friend, I can't believe this is what's holding them back. I get it. Eric Gordon is lightning off the bench. He is likely to be one of those guys, kind of like Lou Williams. He can drop 30 off the bench, and he fits their play style perfectly, just raining threes. He really has had a resurgence in his career. And I think the reason they don't want to include PJ Tucker in that trade is that he is the glue guy. He holds the team together in a lot of ways. He helped bring Houston the meaning of defense. He can be their power forward, a small forward. He's interchangeable and does a lot of things for them. But he's like the perfect glue guy slash 3-and-D player. But they just don't want to give that much for Jimmy Butler. But then I saw the Rockets versus Pelicans game, and let me not get this misconstrued. The season opener for any team is not indicative of what's going to happen for the rest of the season. I know that. But if anything, watching that game really hit home the points is what I've been trying to tell other people. Houston needs Butler, or at least a player like him, to be truly competitive. They'll be a top 3 seed, no doubt. But if they go against Golden State again, since they lost Mute and they lost Trevor Ariza, they'll get beaten 5 or 6 games, and they will not be able to hold out. The time for Houston to go all in to win it all is today. Now, another reason they could be kind of waiting is so they can wait towards the end of the trade deadline to get Butler when the Wolves are going to be a bit more desperate, maybe lower their asking price, maybe agree to the original deal they're talking about. Maybe that's what they're doing, and for their sake, I really hope that's what they're waiting for. The risk you run with that is that you get a team like Miami, who has been so close to getting a deal done with the Wolves as well, to the point where they traded medical information on their players to each other. Now, people don't think that's a big deal, but for most GMs, analysts, other guys who know, once you start trading medical records of your players, that pretty much means that the deal is done. And that's what the process they're about to do. They're about to trade Josh Richardson and a first-round pick for Jimmy Butler, and I forget who else, just as a salary cap filler, but that deal was about to happen. And then the very last minute, Tom Thibodeau, or the GM of the Wolves, said, hey, we want more picks, to which Pat Riley basically said, screw you, and said that's not going to happen, and then abruptly just ended the trade talks. Now, they've been trying to pick up again, but point being is that Houston needs to jump on this now before someone else takes him. Let's not forget who Jimmy Butler was, or who he still is. He's this in a nutshell. He can get you 20, 25 points per game. He can really hit it from 3, and he's one of the better defenders in the league. Watching Houston last night, they needed that defender. They need that other scoring option, and he fits that mold perfectly of a guy who can shoot threes, because we all know Houston likes to shoot threes, and a guy who can D-up on them. I think you got to go for it. You have to be willing to trade Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker. You got James Ennis as a guy you can probably take PJ Tucker's spot. I know it kind of leaves you thin, and you're not even sure how Melo's going to turn out at this rate. He had a pretty poor performance starting up the season. But think about it this way. This could be your starting lineup, because at this point, if you trade PJ Tucker, you may have to actually start Carmelo, which who knows if that's what's best for him. But your starting lineup looks like this: Chris Paul, James Harden, Jimmy Butler, Carmelo Anthony at the 4, Capella at the 5. That's a pretty good starting lineup. That looks pretty solid. Here's why they really need to go for it. Chris Paul is not getting younger. This guy has had a series of injuries for, I think, the last 5 years straight, some sort of injury. He's not going to be better next year. He's probably going to fall off within the next 2 years. Fall off could mean just not an all-star or just a solid point guard or just slightly above average. But they can't afford any drop-off right now because they need all players on deck if you want to take on Golden State. And if he leaves the following year, that's fine. You free up some cap space. You won't owe PJ Tucker more money for the next 2-3 years. You can move on from that because rumor is Gordon's out no matter what. So you got to capitalize on what you have right now and just go for it because what do you got to lose? We all know you're not going to win without him. You might as well go for it. Do it while CP3 is still a solid player and while he's healthy right now. You have to go for it. And if you wait till February, you run the risk of not having that chemistry in place. It's a risky move to wait till February. Even if you get to keep PJ Tucker, you got to kind of run that risk or someone else gets him. Houston cannot win this without a guy like Jimmy Butler. It's just that simple. Me personally, I mean, I would like to see some parity in the West. I would like to see some teams actually challenge Golden State, and now that they added Cousins, even if Cousins is 75% of the player he was last season, that's still an all-star. That's still an upgrade above JaVale McGee and Zaza Pachulia. You're going from those two guys to freaking DeMarcus Cousins or whatever is the remainder of them after that injury, but you have to go for it. Either way, I have Golden State and Boston meeting up in the finals. Golden State probably winning in 7, even though I'd love for Boston to win. I'm not a fan of either of those teams, but I like I said, want to see some parity in the league. Watching Jimmy Butler last night, he was just step away, let me take on this team. If for all those don't know, Jimmy Butler and the Wolves when he was the Spurs, San Antonio won that game. I think he'd mesh well with that team. I think he'd mesh well with Houston. Here's another thing. Imagine passers like CP3 and James Harden. What kind of open looks can they generate for a guy like Jimmy Butler? When has Jimmy Butler ever had a true passing guard on his team, or a player for that matter, not really including Jamal Crawford, as one of his teammates? He's had Derrick Rose, and then he had post-injury Derrick Rose. And Jeff Teague's not a bad guy right now, starting point guard for the Wolves. He's not bad, but he's not CP3. He's not Harden. He can't create shots like those guys can. And forget creating it. Imagine all the attention Harden, who just won an MVP, is going to get from defenders. That's going to get Butler open. He's going to get better shots. He's going to get better looks. And he has shown that he can knock him down. Yesterday with Timberwolves, you can tell that team, they're not going to get very far. They're not going to make it. He's going to get his numbers, but that team's going to look ugly. He doesn't mesh well with Wiggins or Towns. I don't blame him. Wiggins has shown to be kind of a bust. That, hey, it was probably a pretty good deal for the Cavs to trade Wiggins for Love because at least the Cavs shown that they can win with Love. Wiggins has all the physical tools. He has all the natural-born gifts. He does not have the skill, and skill is something you develop. He has not developed a three-point shot. He can't shoot consistently. He hasn't shown that he can defend consistently. Towns is a great player. He just needs to learn how to defend. Needs to put more effort. And you'd think a guy who learned it under Kevin Garnett would actually follow that type of role model and play pretty good defense, but he can't. He actually fouled out in 22 minutes last night. That's not good either. So I don't blame Butler for wanting out, quite frankly, because he faced the San Antonio Spurs team who had a 32 going on 33-year-old LaMarcus Aldridge, and he went 21-18, I believe it was. That's freaking crazy. 21-18 for LaMarcus Aldridge. Kudos to the Spurs for pulling off that game. Their starting point guard was Brian Forbes. Not many of you guys know who that is. And then they had DeRozan. That was his first game with them, and they still lost. That was his very first game with the Spurs, and they lost that. That's just wow. And their starting center, Jakob Poeltl, played 8 minutes. They still depend on Gasol and Aldridge to fill in most of those center minutes right now. And they lost. Close game. Don't get me wrong, it was a very entertaining close game. But this needs to happen. I think it's a win-win for that trade. You trade Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker, and they actually fit in pretty well with those Wolves. They can probably keep them competitive. Eric Gordon will still be that knockdown three-point specialist, and then, like I said previously, PJ Tucker can fill up so those defensive gaps for them while also stretching the floor, giving them some depth. It's kind of a win-win. Houston gets to truly say they're contending. This is their time to do it. Right now, Westbrook's down from injury. LeBron and the Lakers, they don't really have any other pieces. No one expects too much from them. Quote unquote, the Spurs are rebuilding, as most people say. Most people don't expect them to make the playoffs. If you're going to go for it, you go for it now. Because outside of Golden State, your competition is the Denver Nuggets, who are they're a solid team. Not to undersell them, but they're not a contender. Same goes for the Pelicans, MVP caliber and Anthony Davis. I really can't see him contending. Utah is actually pretty damn good. Donovan Mitchell, Ricky Rubio, they have a really good, solid team. Rudy Gobert, Derek Favors. But right now, next year, who knows what LA is going to add? Who knows? And then also next year, the Spurs get Murray back. They get their players should be healthy. They'll have more chemistry, more developed team around them. Next year, believe it or not, conference probably gets harder. It probably gets tougher. So right now, Houston needs to be the team to make this happen. As always, thank you guys for listening. Got any comments, questions you think I'm completely off base? Let me know. Let's debate about it in the comments.